Hey guys, Chubs here, back again with another Doom Builder tutorial. Today we're going to be taking a look at actor movers. Actor movers are pretty similar to moving cameras, especially in terms of how they're set up, but instead of moving a camera, you are of course going to be moving an actor. And when I say an actor, I mean really just about anything that you can place, whether it be a demon, a weapon, a key card, a decoration, really just about anything. So I'll just begin by placing a lost soul. That'll be the first thing that we'll move in this little tutorial. So we'll go to the monsters category, throw in a lost soul, and then I'll just make this lost soul friendly. And then the placement of this lost soul is not really going to matter much because it's going to be traveling along a set path. So I'm just going to move him sort of off to the side here. Our path's going to be sort of near the middle of the room. And next I'm going to place an actor mover thing. So I'll pull up the things list again, and the actor movers are located under the cameras and interpolation section. So if you expand that, you will see actor mover. And before we really get started with placing the points that the lost soul is going to follow, let's go ahead and just give the lost soul and the actor mover their own unique ID. So I'm going to start with the lost soul. I'll pull up its properties and I'll give it an ID that hasn't been used yet. So I'll just click the unused button. And that'll be 1 since we haven't given anything else a tag. And then I'll do the same for the actor mover. So I'll give it an unused ID, and so it'll end up with an ID of 2. So the lost soul has an ID of 1 and the actor mover thing has an ID of 2. So now let's place the path that the lost soul should move on. And to do that, just like with moving cameras, we're going to use interpolation points. So I'll pull up the list of things again, and once again under the cameras and interpolation section, go to interpolation point, and I'm just going to place a few of these in a path that I would like the lost soul to follow. So I'll start the path about right here, and then I'll go out this way, and then we'll go up, and then to the right, and then I'll just come back down. So that'll be our path. You can see right now though in the editor, nothing is linked, and so we still have a bunch of setup to do. And I'm actually going to try and space these out a little bit evenly. There we go. So first things first, just like with the lost soul and actor mover, let's give these interpolation points unique IDs. So I'll start here with the first interpolation point. It'll end up having 3, and then this second one here will get 4. This other one will get 5. This one will get 6. And this one will get 7. So the way we've laid them out here in the path that I want it to follow, it's going to be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can see though that these interpolation points still don't have any links in between them, and that's because we haven't told them which point to go to next. So I'm going to go to this first interpolation point, and I'm going to say that the next point tag is 4 because this one has a tag of 3, so we want to go to 4 next. You can see a line now going from 3 to 4. Then I'm going to go to 4, tell it to go to 5, and we'll just continue this until we have reached the end. There we go. So you can now see arrows connecting each point. So the lost soul is going to start here. It's going to go to the right. It's going to go up, to the right, and then down. But we still aren't finished yet because although we have these interpolation points, we haven't yet associated them with this actor mover. So let's do that next. So I'm going to select the actor mover, and you can see that it asks for really 2 important things in our case. It asks for an interpolation point tag, and this is going to be like where the actor first starts at on the path. And then it's also asking for the target thing tag, and this is basically the actor that you want to move. So our lost soul has an ID of 1. So under the actor mover's properties, we're going to go to target thing tag and enter 1, and that way it knows that the actor it's associated with is the lost soul. And then our very first interpolation point here has an ID of 3. So I'm going to go to the actor mover and say interpolation point tag is 3. Now, if you look at our path, something weird has sort of happened here. You can see that our very first and our very last interpolation points have these sort of yellow lines extending to the other points. And in between these other points here in the middle, they have blue lines, and they're sort of curved. So what's happening here is, by default, when you place a bunch of interpolation points and you link them together, and then you associate them with an actor mover, the path is going to be curved. Anytime you have a curved path, the very first and the very last interpolation points are not actually part of the path, but they instead influence the curve based on their position. So let me show you what I mean by that. If I go to this very last interpolation point, and then I sort of move it up here, notice how the curve has changed. I'm going to undo what I just did and watch how this curve changes. So do you see that, how it's sort of messing with the curve as we move it? It's almost like if you use the pen tool in Photoshop and you have those little handles that influence the curve. It's sort of like that. I don't really want that for this example though. I just want it to be a straight path. So what you can do is go to the actor mover, pull up its options by clicking this little bitty box here, and then check linear path. And if we do that, if we click OK here and then click OK again, you can see that now our path is perfectly straight instead of curved, and the very first interpolation point and the very last interpolation point are now part of the path. Notice that they no longer have like a yellow line extending to the other points. Instead, their lines are also blue. So to reiterate, by default, a path is going to be curved, and if it is curved, then the very first interpolation point and the very last interpolation point are not going to be part of the path. They're just going to influence the curve. But if you go to a linear path like this, the very first interpolation point and the very last one are part of the path. So with a linear path like this, the lost soul will start here and travel along until it reaches the end. If this were curved, then the only points that we would really be having the lost soul moved on would be the second one up to the one before the last. So it would be like these three. So with all that out of the way, let's go into visual mode. And right now these interpolation points are right on the ground, and that's not going to be good because we need the lost soul to be up in the air. So I'm going to select these interpolation points, and I'm just going to scroll my mouse wheel to move them sort of up. Then I'm also going to go and I'm going to raise a few of them to be so that their heights are a little different, just to make it more of an interesting path. There we go. So it's not just a straight path. So although the path is linear from one point to the next, we have some height differences, and you'll be able to observe those as the lost soul flies along the path. So we are nearly complete. If we play the map right now, nothing's going to happen because an actor mover does not activate by default. Instead, you have to activate it either by a script or by a certain line action like a walkover line or a switch. I'm just going to do it by a script in this tutorial, and that way the actor mover will just take effect immediately. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull up the script editor window, zoom in a little bit, and I have a big ACS scripting tutorial series if you want to watch that to learn more about scripting. I'm not going to go into great detail about all of the different lines I'm about to enter, but we'll start things with this sort of mandatory line at the top, and that is the number sign or pound sign, include, and then inside quotations, z-acs, and then we're just going to write one script. So I'm just going to type the word script, and I'm just going to name this script activate actor movers. Even though we only have one actor mover, I could actually just call it activate actor mover. I guess that's what I'll do. I'm going to make this an enter script, and what that means is this script runs as soon as the player enters the level, so it's just immediate. We don't have to cross over a line or flip a switch or anything. And then I'll use these curly braces, and then whatever's in between these curly braces is what's going to happen when the script executes. So all we want to do is just activate that actor mover, and if we look here in the editor, that actor mover has an ID of 2. So all we have to do is inside the script do thing_activate, and then we specify that we want to activate the thing with an ID of 2. So what's going to happen is when we enter the map, this script's going to run. It's going to activate the thing with the ID of 2, which is our actor mover. And by doing that, that kicks the actor mover into action, and that's going to make our lost soul follow this path. So everything should be set up here unless I missed a step. So let's go ahead and test the map and see how it behaves. Alright, so the lost soul did indeed travel along the path. It actually flew along the path, and that's because I did sort of skip a step. We set up the points correctly. We have them all linked together, and as you can see, the lost soul did go along the path, but it went through it like a speeding bullet, and that's because we forgot to go to each interpolation point and specify the travel time. And this is how long it takes the actor to travel from one point to the next. So I'm just going to give them all the same travel time. So I'm going to select all of the interpolation points, edit their properties, and the travel time is in octics, I think is what it's called. And if you pull down this, if you go to this little drop down menu, you can see some of the time conversions. So 8 of those octics is 1 second, 34 of them is 4 seconds. So it's a little confusing trying to convert it into real world time. I want this to be pretty quick, so I'm just going to use 15. If you look, 34 is 4 seconds, 8 is 1 second, so 15 is going to be not very long. So it'll take the lost soul that much time, those 15 octics, to go from one interpolation point to the next. So that way it'll still be quick, but it won't be like a speeding bullet. So let's try it again, and hopefully everything should be good this time. Alright, there we go. So everything was good. One thing you might have noticed though that made it look sort of crappy is the lost soul just continued to basically face the same direction the entire time instead of facing the path. And luckily that's a very easy problem to solve. All you have to do is go to your actor mover, pull up its properties, go to the options box here, and in addition to linear path, what we're going to check are these three things: use point angle, use point pitch, and then face thing / movement direction. By checking these additional three things, what this basically does is it tells whatever actor is following this path to face the path instead of just continuing to face whatever direction you've set it at in the editor. So now this lost soul should move to the right and face right, and then when it starts to go up, it will face in this upwards direction, and it'll just continue facing whatever direction it's moving in on the path. So let's test it and let's make sure that it works. Alright, so that was definitely much better. So now that we've got it facing along the path, I also just want to convert this back to the default curved path. And the curved path actually looks a whole lot better overall in my opinion, and then we'll just sort of see how that looks. So to do that, all we have to do is go to our actor mover, pull up its options, and we're just going to uncheck linear path, and we're going to leave these other three things checked because we still want the lost soul to face the path. But this should now no longer be a linear path, so I'll click OK, OK, and we're back to what I was talking about earlier about how the very first and the very last interpolation points are not part of the path, they just sort of influence the curve. So we're going to set up this path a little differently now, because right now the path is really only like right here in the center. I still want it to be like right here and similar to what we had with the linear path. So we're going to need to add some additional interpolation points to get that. So I'm going to go to the very first interpolation point. I'm just going to move it down because it's not really part of the path. We're going to go here to the second interpolation point, which is part of the path. I'm going to move it over sort of to where we had the first one before. And I'm just going to try and create a path that's a little bit longer. So I'm going to add maybe 2 more interpolation points here. So let's, I'm just going to copy paste this, give it an unused ID. and then I'll do the same thing again. Give this an unused ID. And you can see that these new ones that I put in have not yet been linked, so we need to change that. So I'm going to go here to this interpolation point, say that the next point is 8. So now we've got a link here, and we need to link this last one. So I'm going to go to this one and say the next point is 9. So we've now formed a link. And so now you can see this very last one here with the yellow line is not part of the path. It's only influencing the curve. So right now our path is like this right here where these sort of blue lines are. I'm also going to go into visual mode and sort of mess around with the height again just to make the path a little more interesting. So there you go. So you can see now we have this sort of cool looking curved path, and when we play test this, you'll see how much better this looks in motion than the sort of linear path. So let's go ahead and test it, and actually let me double check just to make sure we have our travel time set. I don't want to make that same mistake again. Yeah, since I did my copy paste, the travel time was in there for the new ones. So we still have the travel time of 15 octicks as we go along the path. So I just wanted to make sure we didn't mess up on that again. So let's go ahead and test it, and let's see how the curved path looks. Alright, so you can see a curved path looks much more natural and just really looks better overall, at least I think. One last thing I wanted to point out, I almost forgot, is if you have a curved path like this, I've already gone over how the very first and the very last point influence the curve. They are not part of the path, but something that's a little odd, might be a little confusing at first, is that if the path forms a loop, that is not the case. So let me explain that, or let me demonstrate that. So right now all we have is just a path that comes to an end. Instead, let's make this a continuous loop. So let me rearrange these interpolation points here. And we're basically going to turn this into like a circle that loops all the way around and just keeps going in a loop. So let's go to this last point, and I'm going to connect it to the first point. So this first point has a tag of 3, so I'm going to go to the last point now and say that the next point should be 3. We've now formed a loop, and look at what's happened. We no longer have any yellow lines that influence the curve. All of the lines now are blue, even though we're still using a curved path, and that goes back to what I just said a second ago. If you form a loop, then the thing about the first point and the last point not being part of the path is no longer true. They are part of the path if the path is a loop like this. So I'm going to form a little bit of a more interesting shape, and then we'll sort of mess around with their heights again. There we go. We'll just leave it like that, and then we'll check the travel time. I want to make sure I didn't screw that up again. Yep, travel time's still the same. So let's test this and see what we got. Alright, so you could see how that sort of worked. We had a loop, and the lost soul just sort of kept going around and around and around instead of coming to a stop at the end like before. And really that's all there is to actor movers. I think I've covered really just about everything you need to know here. I did want to sort of cap this video off though with a very cool use case for these, because right now all you're looking at is really sort of a gimmick. I really just wanted to show you how to set an actor mover up and get it working. But I'm going to show you something that's a little more interesting from a gameplay standpoint and could actually serve to enhance your level design using an actor mover. So let's just sort of get rid of everything here. And instead of a lost soul, we're going to use this new actor that I made ahead of time, and that is a spike trap. And this is sort of straight out of Rise of the Triad. So by default, all this thing's going to do is just sit there and spin, and if you walk up to it and touch it, you take damage. So what I want to do is make this thing follow a path. I don't think I'm going to use a curved path this time. I think I'm just going to use sort of a square path. But by doing this, we'll basically be able to create a moving hazard, which is something that you don't really see often in Doom maps. So we've already got the spike trap. I'm going to give it an unused ID. I'm going to go a little bit quicker through this process since I've already covered the setup. Next, we're going to place the actor mover. And one thing you can do instead of trying to find it here is you can just search for it using the filter. So I'll just type actor, and you can see it right there. I'm going to give this an unused ID, and I'm also going to go ahead and link it to the spike trap that we just placed. So under target thing tag, I'm going to type 1. And if we hover over it, you can sort of see a line between it and the spike trap to show they're linked. And next, we need to set up our interpolation points to define the path. So I'm going to start the path right here. So I'll place an interpolation point, and then we'll have the path go up. I'm just going to make it form a square. So over here, make sure everything's lined up. That should be a perfect square just about. And then I'm just going to give these interpolation points IDs. So go to this one, give it an unused ID, which will be 3. This one will become 4. This one will become 5. This one will become 6. And then, of course, we need to link these together. So I'm going to go to the first one. And since this has a tag of 3, we're going to say that this leads to 4. This one is going to lead to 5. This one is going to lead to 6. And then this one is going to loop back around to 3. And we also don't want to screw up again like we did earlier. We want to give these all a travel time. I'm just going to use the same old travel time as before. It may be too fast, but I'm just going to type 15. And again, that's how long it takes to travel from one point to the next. And this is for all of them now. And we are just about finished. So let's go to our actor mover. And you can see we have not yet tied it to the path. So for interpolation point tag, we need to enter 3 because that's the tag of the very first point here down in the lower left corner. And you can see right now it's a circular path. And you know what? I think we'll actually try this. I was thinking of not doing that. I was thinking of having it just be like a perfect square. We can do that easily by going to the options and making it a linear path. But I think I'll undo that. We'll try it just with sort of a circular curved path for now. And since this spike trap is on the ground, we don't need to take these and raise them and mess with their heights like we did with the Lost Soul. I'm just going to keep them on the ground. So I think everything is set up. The actor mover has an ID of 2, and remember that it is not active by default, so we need to activate that some way. Let me check our script that we wrote earlier. This actually is already handling it since we're using the same ID just by coincidence. So when the player enters this map, this script's going to run. It's going to activate the thing with the ID of 2, which is our actor mover, and that should start this spike trap on this path. So let's test it and see what we got. Alright, that was perfect. So you could see our spike trap started to go along the path, and you could also see that when you touch it, it sort of hurts. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm actually just going to turn this into a square path. And I'm also just going to throw in some decorations here to sort of let you see where the path is. I'll do that real quick and speed this part up. Alright, so now we have a ground texture so that you can see the path that our spike trap follows. And for one last little thing, I'm just going to throw in a few monsters for this spike trap to obliterate. So let's throw in some pinkies. I think I'm in the mood for killing some pinkies. So we'll use the pinkies as our poor bait and let them run into the trap. I'll just place them over there and make sure that they are not friendly. I forgot that I had that checked. They definitely shouldn't be friendly. And so now when we start the map, our spike trap should go along this path. And let's also see if we can kill the pinkies with it. So here we go. Alright, so there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I will be placing this map in the video description, so that way you can get the spike trap for yourself and try placing it on a path and messing around with it. But that's just about everything you need to know about actor movers. As you can see, they can be sort of gimmicky, but you can also use them, just like in the case of this spike trap, to do things with your level design that never would have really been possible before, at least not without some crazy workarounds. So that's all for this tutorial. If you guys have any questions, feel free and ask below. Thank you all for watching. This is Chubbs, signing out.